Hey everyone, thank you for joining tonight's educational forum on adaptive hunting and fishing. This is a continuation of Oregon Spinal Cord Injury Connection's ongoing sessions of educational forums. Tonight's forum will be recorded for community members that couldn't attend. So please don't share any personal information that you aren't comfortable with being recorded. Outside of that, just remember this is a safe place for everybody to share. I know some of the topics tonight are going to be about harvesting animals. So if you're not into that kind of thing, now is your warning to exit the video. And with that, I'd like to introduce tonight's guest speakers. We got Colton Curtis, Matt Howard, and Chad.
Walagura.
Thank you. I didn't want to murder it. Appreciate that.
No problem.
And with that, I'm gonna let Matt kind of kick us off and get us rolling.
Yeah. Thanks, Casey. Can we go back to maybe the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think we'll start with, Colton, Chad, and myself just sort of going through what our sort of experiences are with the hunting world. I think I can't speak to Chad, but I know like Colton and I were hunters before our injury. So for us, it was a matter of getting back into hunting after our injury. So we'll sort of talk through our experiences, our history, barriers, that sort of thing. So for myself, I am a Northwest native. I live in Portland, Oregon now, specifically on Sauvie Island, which is kind of when it comes to Oregon, it's kind of the waterfowl mecca for us. And I grew up hunting since I was about nine or 10, mostly birds. So that's my background is upland and then waterfowl hunting. So I've done a little bit of deer hunting here in Oregon, and then back east in the Carolinas, and then some pig hunting down in Texas. And then fishing all over the place for salmon and trout and stuff like that. But when it comes to what my joy is, it's definitely waterfowl hunting. That is what I enjoy doing more than anything. And how I got into it was through family. So I started when I was 9 or 10. And before that, I was going out with my dad. I think before I could barely walk, he would carry me on his shoulders, flush a pheasant, put me down, pick up a shotgun, shoot a pheasant, pick me back up. So I have a very long, before he can even hunt, I've been in the sort of hunting world, and sort of going down a list of sort of things, sort of adaptive technology that I use. So as you can see in this picture here, I have an adaptive mountain bike. So I use that strictly for mountain biking, but then I also use that for hunting. So as in that picture, last season I have the benefit of access to a hunting dog. It is not my dog. It is my girlfriend's hunting dog. But she gives me the privilege of taking them hunting. So we went out, we shot some pheasant on my mountain bike. I've used that mountain bike for going out turkey hunting. I plan on using it this coming season for duck hunting too, getting into some areas that I wouldn't normally get into.
Mix this up. That was straight tequila. Because it all melts.
Just gonna pause. I think there's a little sound. Yeah, and then thinking through. So for me, the most common barriers would be access. So as a duck hunter, I would say that being my primary quarry that I like to chase, it's barrier. So it's access to hunting areas. So we kind of have the benefit on Sauvie Island, where I do most of my hunting, that the state agency ODFW has worked to develop this WMA, so this wildlife management area, that they have some adaptive blinds. So these are areas where they are essentially wheelchair accessible. So it might be a compact dirt or a gravel path to a blind that doesn't have a lip that you can get into, so I can duck hunt and stuff like that. And then finding cool adaptive technology like mountain bike, or I haven't used it yet. I think Colton has, but like the track chairs for hunting and stuff like that has been primarily for me how I've gotten around a lot of the barriers to hunting. I'm a para, so I don't have a lot of the same, like I don't have any hand or upper body function issues. So like raising a shotgun or shooting a rifle or stuff like that isn't an issue. So that's, that's kind of a lot of the things, and then things down the line that I want to do. So it's getting more and more into the duck hunting realm, and the like specifically I've duck hunted a lot, but like getting specifically into goose hunting is a whole nother thing. So, and starting to use things like figuring out how to use a layout blind is one of the things I want to do, which I use
You can do that.
yeah, and so figuring that out, I'll go up in a few weeks and do some snow goose hunting out of a layout blind. So kind of figuring that piece out of it out. I'm not a big game guy yet. I've done a little bit of it, but figuring that out a little bit more, trying to get into some archery. My plan was to do some of that archery hunting this year for deer. Unfortunately, like I ended up moving in September, so which messed up my entire archery season. But it's fine. It's fine. I moved to a spot where I can watch geese fly over at shooting range over my house. So, pros and cons. So I think I'll kind of stop there. I think that's my background. I'll let other folks talk, and then we'll get into the rest of it.
Cool. Colton, you wanna go? And then Chad, you can go after.
Yeah. I started hunting, I was probably 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, going with my parents, going with my dad, grandfather, all that. And a lot like Matt, they would carry me to where we were going just because it was a long walk, and then we'd sit down in the blind or behind the bush or wherever we were sitting. So a lot of my background comes before my injury. And I've only been injured for a little over 2 years. I got out of the hospital in August, and then I was back out in the woods in November. So it didn't take me very long. I didn't get to do a whole lot that year. I basically just rode around in the truck, and I don't know about other states or how that kind of thing works in other states, but you're able to get like a disability permit through ODFW that allows you to shoot from a vehicle from any county road, dirt road, stuff like that. So I got lucky. I was able to shoot a deer that way. And a lot of what I do is by road. I use a track chair a lot. I actually have a new thing I'm going to try this year. I got one of those Fireflies that I've been really interested on. I know they work really well for gravel roads, so my strategy this year is to find like gravel roads, gated roads that you can go on, and then you can just cruise. Because I like to do a lot of solo hunting, so I like to figure out how to do a lot of things myself. But yeah, a lot of my issue too is just mobility, trying to get out, get through the woods, because especially this part of Oregon, Western Oregon is it's a lot of timber, it's a lot of hills, a lot of rough terrain. So navigating is one of the bigger issues I face. But I'm slowly getting it figured out. Just trying a bunch of different things, trial and errors. About the only thing you can do. I don't do a whole lot of bird hunting just because where I'm at down in the western areas, there's not a whole lot of bird hunting. There's no flyways or anything like that down here. So I'm more of a big game hunter. A lot of deer, a lot of elk. Mostly archery hunt. this year's a lot of rifle hunting, but I like to shoot my bow a lot. So yeah.
Are you ready for me?
I'm ready.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
thanks,
Chad,
Colton.
take
Well,
over.
I'm a C7 quad. I got hurt in '86, so that's 37 years ago. The internet was just a baby back then, so there wasn't a lot of info on adaptive anything. So I kind of, it was just before my senior year in high school. I was a fisherman and hunter before I got hurt, of course. So I took like a year off of high school just to figure out how to hunt and fish. Did a lot of failing that first. Everything I tried to do, I had to make like a trigger puller, which I tried to do with this stupid little thing that they gave you at the rehab called a wanchik. You're supposed to write with it. I was like, I think I can pull the trigger with that thing, which I could, but it wasn't any good because it was metal on the trigger. I couldn't really tell when the gun was about to go off. So I missed a deer, couldn't bird hunt. It was pretty lowly, but it gave me so much information that on what I needed to do for the next year to be able to do it. So as a quad, you need to be able to, you don't have any grip. So I made like a makeshift trigger puller and made some chest straps. And that's really all you need to shoot rifle for big game is a trigger puller. My dad made a deer stand that had a countertop in it, so I could just roll under it. And I'm not freehanding a rifle anyway. But shotgun was the toughest. Bird hunting was tough to figure out as a quad. So that's my first love. I'll always do bird hunting, especially now that I got into training gun dogs. And Matt, you need to get your own bird dog so you can get into hunt tests because it's addicting.
Yeah,
And
I like I've had him in the past. I'm just like I unfortunately bought a pet dog and I need him to just cross that rainbow bridge before I can get my next
no
gun.
way. You need to get one started now because it takes a year and a half, 2 years to get them where they're ready to roll. So I've been real fortunate. I got into big game hunting. I didn't kill my first deer till I was 15. So it was pretty much after my injury that I started going up. I won a hunt with Buckmasters, went out to New Mexico and hunted a antelope in the Gila National Forest. You wouldn't think antelope would be way up at elevation in the forest, but they were. We kind of got hooked. So I've been to Africa a couple times, bear hunting in Canada, bird hunting in Argentina. That was an epic trip. I need to go back there someday. That's like the mecca for bird hunters, duck and dove. Mexico, of course, before it got too dangerous to go down there, we'd go bird hunt and deer hunt. So I've been to a lot of different Western states. There's some good hunts to go on. I tried to go on a bunch of group hunts because there's different organizations in different states. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Just because a lot of people would contact me from all over, and I would need to know, if I'm going to send them somewhere and to hunt, I need to know what kind of hunt it is or if it's any good or not. So I've been fortunate to be able to travel all over, and I got too much information. The Outrider USA Coyote is 100 times better than a track chair will ever be. It's quiet. Someday it will allow you to bow hunt an elk on foot someday. If you ever want to archery hunt elk, I think that's one of the top 5 hunts in the world is going to be a bow hunting for a bull elk. And that Outrider Coyote is going to allow you to do it. I mean, it weighs only 150 pounds. One person can load it up in the back of your truck. It'll go 80 miles or more on one charge. It'll run circles around that track chair is a rough riding son of a bitch. So I did that that's the one innovation I found recently that I was like, where I heard the angels singing. I was like, oh yeah, they let me borrow one to use their field model to go on an antelope hunt a couple years ago, and it was great. I mean, it wasn't the 4-wheel drive one they have now, but I stalked an antelope, and it was just kind of like being on foot, stalking an antelope, being quiet, sneaking up on him, and taking one up in Wyoming. So I've pretty much done it all.
Chad, for the people here that don't know what the Outrider Coyote is, do you mind explaining it a little?
It's just an electric mountain bike, and I think that it has a Tesla battery in it or something. I don't know how they get it to where it'll last so long, but I've been working with them. I went and tested it out. They're out of North Carolina, so they want. We're working on building a shooting rest for it. So I mean, they can trick it out any way you need it. We were there talking to them, saying, you need to raise the seat up so it's a little easier. It wasn't that hard. As a C7 quad, I could transfer on and off of it. So pair ought to be able to do that all day long.
So don't they have a model that's kind of built more for paras and then one that's more for quads?
As far as I know, it's the Coyotes, the 4-wheel drive off-road version. So they're just now venturing into our neck of the woods, the adaptive realm. They'll put a tri-pin on it for some of the gear. I mean, to make it go and stop, stuff like that. So they'll custom make it to you. I mean, they better. I had a rickshaw style. Before that, I had a guy make me an aluminum rickshaw looking style chair, so one person could haul me cross country I had it with the antelope in mind, but we actually hunted elk out of it one time to get back in the sticks with it. We were this close to getting one out of that thing, so that would work for archery too. But man, that Outrider would be so good for archery in the right situation. I mean, it's not going to climb a 60-degree mountain, but it can go a lot of places.
I'd like to go back through. I'll start with you, Matt. What's like the one piece of adaptive equipment besides your mountain bike that you found works really well for you?
I mean, I think the one piece of adaptive equipment, I mean, for me, it's definitely mobility, but then also finding, I think for me, because I duck hunt in the Northwest, which is notorious for rain, it's finding clothing that works for me. So like, that's the biggest thing. So like, I'm a para, so like, shooting stuff like adaptive shooting and stuff like that is not a problem. I can use a regular shotgun and stuff like that. Mobility, getting in and out. And I will say, because I kind of like Colt, I like to do a lot of solo hunting. And when it comes to duck hunting, there's kind of two things. It's throwing your decoy spread out solo, and then also retrieving ducks. So on the duck side, I steal my girlfriend's dog and take him.
Why don't you take your girlfriend with you?
Oh, she comes out with me most of the time. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, don't get me wrong. She is with me 90% of the time, but every once in a while.
Make her put the decoys out.
And I'm she is a professional at breaking ice. Yeah. Here's the shovel, break ice. But on those days where I just want to, I just go out solo, she's got work or something. I'll take the dog, and then so like it's not a piece of adaptive technology, but like I found a decoy pole, which is basically it's like a telescoping pole that has a hook on the end. So I'll put decoys out with that. Like that works great for me. A jet sled, which is, I mean, it's just a plastic sled that I can pull behind my chair. Even just without a track chair on my mountain bike or anything, I can just pull it behind me to my spot and throw my stuff out. I think, so like adaptive technology wise, I think the only thing I use in my mountain bike, and the other things are just regular things that I've found that like, I see a problem. It's like getting my decoys out. So what do I do to that? And then I start Googling, and it's like, oh, I found a telescoping pole. They can get the decoys 20 feet out. They make one specifically for decoys, but also like I was looking at, just pool like poles that like are telescoping that you would use in like somebody would use in a community pool to get something. Yeah, so stuff like that. I think that's so mobility is the biggest thing for me.
Cool. Colton, what about you? Have you found anything that has helped you or that works for you?
No, like Matt, my biggest deal is mobility. I'm slowly finding out that a four-wheeler is starting to be a really good friend of mine. I figured out how to get up on it, take my chair with me, because when I'm hunting, all I do is I'll take my backpack and a couple things, some survival gear, whatever, just in case something happens. And I take off and go. Like I said, I'm really excited to try my freewheel, or not my freewheel, but my Firefly this year, especially being over there where we're going. It's really flat, and it's a lot of skid roads, so I'm not going to be fighting terrain a whole lot. So I'll be able to get around pretty easy. Other than the long distance shots that are probably going to come with it just from being in the desert. But I know clothing, that's a big thing. I don't know about where Chad's at, because he's down there in Texas where it's always warm and cozy. But I know up here in Oregon, especially, this time of year with getting into the late season archery and the rifle and all that, it gets pretty cold. So clothing is one of your best friends that you can use to be successful around here.
I wish they would
Yeah.
make some heated pants, and they don't.
No, they make heated jackets, heated vests. They do make
I
heated
know.
socks. They make heated
They
socks.
they need to do the pants, because the heat would come up into your jacket anyway. I don't know why they don't, because your legs are what makes you cold when you lose that muscle mass, and that your legs shrink up. That's what gets cold, and that's what gets you cold.
Yeah.
I did buy one of the heated vests this year. I haven't used it yet, but I'm looking forward to that. Trying to stay a little bit warmer. Even like not even, I mean, outside of even just hunting, just like in the spring, like turkey hunting, we still get into the 20s at night. So even just sleeping in the back of the truck, getting the heated vest. And I think for like, along with clothing, it's just staying dry for me. Duck hunting, especially into like December, January, it's just wet nonstop. Finding like rain gear that kind of fits and it'll keep me dry. That's kind of the biggest challenge, because for me, like I did last year, I got like super wet. I mean, we had an amazing hunt, killed our limits of ducks. I think we killed 5 or 6 limits, but like I got wet and then I got a little bit of crease in my pants, which gave me a pressure sore. Like so I think that's definitely my biggest challenge.
So Chad, kind of the same question to you, but kind of a two-part also, because with your experience as being a quad, I know you kind of have dealt with grip issues and stuff, and it seems like you've been able to overcome those well in your way. But could you also recommend any devices for some of like the C5, C6 and the less functioning quads out there that still want to get back out there, especially when it comes to like trigger pulling and that stuff?
A buddy of mine and I, we perfected this design. You were talking about 3D printing. We just started 3D printing the trigger puller that I designed over the years. So we finally ended up with carbon fiber, and he got somebody to make him some in China, actually, to do carbon fiber. We're going to start selling those trigger pullers because it's good for C7, C6, C5. Pretty much everybody can use those. I mean, and that I've seen some before, like it Be Adaptive, and the one they have, I don't know why they do this. I even talked to the guy and said, you're doing it wrong. You need your finger touching the trigger, and he's got it on the inside. I'm like, you need to feel the trigger. You need to feel when it's about to go. And every hunter knows that, especially if you're shooting shotgun. But he never did anything about it. So we're gonna start selling the trigger pullers that we do. Down here, we need to be able to beat the heat, and as a quad, you lose your ability to sweat, so it's hard to thermal regulate. So you either use like a spray bottle to keep yourself wet, or what we had to take this past time was they make a little mister fan that sits on a 5-gallon bucket, and it runs off a battery. You can put a little ice water in there, and that thing, it was for me and my dog, because it was 100 degrees in the shade. So that's dangerous if you're a quad. I mean, you can't be out there unless you're prepared. So you have to have that, and they also make this icy breeze cooler, which you put ice water in it, and it's like a little air conditioner. It'll run for about 4 hours. It just blows cold air. So those are the things we do, and it gets cold every once in a while. We go crane hunting the Panhandle, and it'll be cold up there, but it's a wet cold. It's not that dry cold like it is in the mountains. So it's totally different.
Are there any like rifles, like mounts that you could recommend that somebody that isn't able to lift the rifle themselves are
The
able to
final
use?
rest, is probably the best one to start out with. It's not that expensive, and you can get somebody to adapt it. A couple of guys I know have, if you know anyone that works with metal, they can figure out how to connect it to the frame of your chair. And that final rest is pretty solid. That's what I always get people to start out with anyway. And sometimes that thing's good enough to go your whole hunting career with it. You put that death grip on there, and you can, one of the best innovations that has come around in the past 10 years is a suppressor on your rifle, because it takes about 80-90% of the recoil off. And I had no idea till we shot them in Africa. I just thought it dampened the noise, but it takes the recoil off. And as a quad, I wasn't ever going to shoot a big caliber rifle just because it beats the hell out of me. I don't have any trunk, so I was never going to shoot a big caliber rifle until they legalized suppressors. And now I got a 7 mag, and I just got a 300 Win mag. And it's like, it makes it so much easier to shoot at the range and to hunt with it. Thank goodness.
The trigger puller that you're talking about, do you know how far out that is where they'll become available?
Pretty soon. My buddy's about to put them on his site. He just created a site called Into It Outdoors, and we're putting a store page on Able Outdoors that we're gonna link to his. So it's gonna be going online here within the next couple months, I think.
Once that goes live, do you mind sending me the link, and I'll make sure to share it out to some of the people that are attending here?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we put a lot of cool stuff that I find, like they make a little headlamp now that has like a motion detector once you turn it on. So like me, if you have a problem hitting small buttons and stuff for your headlamp, you just put your hand up here and wave it, it turns it on and off. So sometimes mainstream products work well for us. You just have to find them every now and then.
Yeah. I did kind of put together a list of some adaptive hunting and shooting devices here. Chad, you may have some experience with some of these. But I plan on sending this list out to everybody attending, and then also, like, if there's other things that I'm missing that you guys see that you think I should have on here, please send it my way, and I'll make sure to email it out to everybody. And then the next one is kind of adaptive fishing aids, and that's kind of where I want to switch subjects and maybe Colton, if you don't mind talking about some of your fishing trips and how that is for accessibility for you. And
Okay, yeah. I'm learning it's all about the charters that you choose or the boats that you choose. And see, I'm a para, so I've got that upper body and I've got the full, the arms and the hands. So transferring for me is quite a bit easier than most. But I'm finding that if you're fishing lakes and stuff like that, pontoon boats are your best friends because you can put wheelchair ramps from the dock straight to the boat, and you can wheel right on and off the boat and not have any problems. And you got plenty of room to move around. The sides are tall enough you can fish over them, but they're also tall enough to where you're not going to roll off the boat. If you start getting some wind or stuff like that. Ocean fishing is a little bit more difficult just because the boats are so much bigger. Getting on and off can be a challenge sometimes. I've noticed for me getting into the boat is quite a bit easier than getting out of the boat just because the sides are so much taller. But there's a charter we use that I go fishing with all the time. They actually have to lift you in and out of the boat in your chair, which isn't too bad. It's pretty easy. They're starting to get it down pretty well, especially now that I'm going with them so often. But lake fishing, I would definitely say pontoon boats. Ocean fishing, you got to work at it a little bit to get it in. Like I said, get it out of the boat. But I tell you what, there's no better adrenaline rush than hooking into an ocean fish. That's for sure.
thank you. Chad or Matt, do you guys have any tips or tricks when it comes to fishing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, pontoon boats are great. I've used those on the rivers, fishing for salmon. I've done the same thing with like charter boats where it's like, yeah, it's a little difficult, but I've found most captains are pretty chill with like, figuring it out. If depending on the boat, like if you're doing like halibut or something like that, like electric reels are awesome for like depending if you gotta fight something from 400 feet down. Electric reels are awesome. So sort of checking in with like a captain on that. Then I've done a lot of depending on your ability to transfer. So years ago when my brother and I lived together, we did a lot of kayak fishing. So that was a great way to access kind of smaller bodies of water if you're able to transfer into a kayak. And just and fishing for trout and stuff like that. We did a little kayak fishing trip on a very small river, which I would probably consider a stream, but and getting in and out and like getting out of the river, like getting in was like getting in the kayak and then shooting down a little dirt ramp into the water, and then he we tied the kayak to the truck and pulled me out. So figuring stuff out like that. But and then I would say depending on your state, like I would go to your state agency, go to their website, and like I know ODFW has a whole adaptive like I would say adaptive accessible fishing map. So this is a map that has all the docks for either freshwater or saltwater that are accessible to people in wheelchairs all around the state. And like I kind of cross reference those with the trout stocking schedule. So if you're interested in trout fishing, looking at like, oh, this I know this dock on this lake works for me. Like, let me see when they're stocking that lake with fish. It's kind of a good way to go about if you're interested in just sort of getting into fishing.
Very cool. Chad, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. For me, we grew up using spinning reels on the coast, so all I had to do was tape my hand to the rod. But to go offshore, I kind of had to create my own system because you need evidently, I mean, you need heavier equipment, and you're not just going to roll out there with a little light tackle. Freedom Adaptive Systems makes a really good rod holder. It's for people in chairs, and we tweaked it a little bit. We went and we used it when we went salmon fishing on Lake Michigan. It worked good. I just needed to tweak it a little bit so I could pull, like so I could fight the fish myself. So we added a little handle to it. That's a good place to go look. It's called I think it's called the Barracuda. Freedom Adaptive Systems Barracuda. That's for bigger fish. Or if you're one-handed, God, there's a strike fighter out there that works good for sitting down and reeling with one hand. Down here there's a company called Boatwright, which makes a boat that it's like a coastal fishing boat that's all one level front to back. They can move the middle console over so you can roll front to back. It has rails around the front so you won't roll off. That's a really good boat for fishing like shallow water anywhere. My buddy has a pontoon boat. There's a there's a guy in Dillon, Montana who has accessible drift boats, and he takes people fly fishing there on the Beaverhead. That's a good group to hook up with. I think it's called Access Unlimited. Jesse Alberry, good guy. I want to go. I want to go film a show with him someday. So, and he's got some good duck hunting around there. But he wasn't a duck hunter until I showed up one time around Thanksgiving. I was like, dude, we need to go duck hunt around here. It's just beautiful, beautiful country. So I fished a lot. I've been all over fishing too. Fishing just as good as hunting. Once you get on a kayak, there's a company called Creating Ability, which makes accessible kayaks, accessible seats and paddles. But there's fishing kayaks, sit on top chairs. You can have your own little trolling motor. The kayak fishing is a big thing nowadays. So we're talking about starting a group around here, around Houston next year to get some people back on the water. So the sky's the limit. If you can think it, you can go do it.
Very cool. Yeah, I tried to include some stuff here, like some pole holders and some adaptive like grip things that you kind of Velcro around the pole that are meant to hold the fishing pole, and then automatic fly reels and the fish winch, which is an electric wheel, and then some one-handed setups. So I tried to include a little bit of everything, but we do have a guy here, Todd Logan, who runs Adaptive Excursions, and he's got, I think they're custom made. Are they from Willie's Boats? Colton, do you know?
Yeah, he's actually sponsored by Willie's. He's got a full open bow boat. I've actually been out with Todd quite a few times. He's one of my favorites to go fishing with. And we got a cute little nickname for him. We call him Peg Leg. Just because he's got an amputated leg, and he likes to joke around with it just as much as we like to joke around, being in our chairs. But he's also got an accessible drift boat, if you want to go down the river, that's got doors in it on both sides, so it's easy to transfer, from your chair into the boat, and then he's got all the stuff in the boat to help you get back into the boat seat, because on the river boat there's not enough room for you to sit in your chair, but he's got special stationed chairs in his boat. His other boat, his Big Willie's, his lake boat, it's got a ramp system that you use to get in it from the dock, and you can be in your chair the whole time on that boat. We actually just got back from a trip with him in June, and it was a blast.
That's awesome. Now, do you know if that boat, can you stay in a power chair, or does it have to be a manual chair?
I believe it can be a power chair. It's plenty big enough. He's got 4 seats or 4 spots in the boat that you can sit in. I'm sure, the size of the chair does matter, whether or not you're going to have, U+3 or U+2 or U+1 or whatever. But I would say that his lake boat is big enough for a power chair.
Do you know if he has any quad setup equipment?
I believe he does. He's got what they call fighting belts. So I know, like, the quads with the limited hand function. I don't know a whole lot about him, and I don't like saying things or talking about things I don't know. But he's got a fighting belt. So if you have trouble holding the rod and then reeling at the same time, he's got a belt that's got a holder that the rod slips in. That way you can use all, what you got to reel instead of trying to balance plus hold the rod plus reel. So he does have a couple little things that helps out.
Very cool. At this point, I'd like to open it up to anybody that has any questions. I mean, now's the time to ask some, and then we'd also like to, hear from you guys. Like, what are your biggest interests in hunting and fishing? Would people be interested in adaptive in-person workshops? And like, what barriers have prevented you from not only starting or getting back into hunting and fishing? So, if anybody, Matt, you want to take over?
Yeah, so I'm adding a little bit to that. So at least in Oregon, so I have the ear of the ODFW folks that run our or our hunting workshops. So these are range from, a wide variety of animals, but also our skills workshops, which include archery and rifle and shotgun. And so I was on the phone to get today one of them who I invited to come to this forum to ask questions, but he was like, he's got kids and stuff and they're running sports. But, so we've been talking about doing adaptive workshops for hunting in Oregon. So, his kind of question to me was like, what do people want? What are people interested in? So like, comments on that go a long ways in terms of, future programming with ODFW. So if you have specific questions about hunting in general, great, like ask us. Then also if you have requests, like if you're like, I wish there was a workshop on this, on hunting this, like this would be the time to say that, because I can report that back to, the state agency. And then also like to Chad and Colton, who are experienced hunters, like what you think like an adaptive sort of hunting or fishing workshop should look like would be super helpful too. So I can report that back to ODFW. So kind of open it up to folks now for questions or comments.
I guess I
Might
could
just-
say that one of the things I've been stuck on is kind of just like the overwhelming barrier as to where to get started. Because I shoot a lot, I've got an off-road mountain bike, I enjoy the outdoor exploration, but there's so much more to the actually hunting application of this that I don't know. To be honest, it's a little overwhelming. And I hunted as a kid, like I said earlier, like I went duck hunting with a friend, right? But it's I don't know. There's just a lot more to it. I'm not sure.
Where are you?
I live in Portland.
Okay.
So is it
Well-
like terrain? Is it like just finding places to hunt? Is that
Places to hunt, how to get I know, Matt, last year you helped me get through the ODFW hunting license portion, which was kind. So I got that all taken care of. But like the next, like how to actually, plan a hunt, get ready for a hunt, execute it, the whole thing. I know you guys said a couple of you guys said you like to hunt on your own, and that sounds badass, but,
You need to know what you're doing.
right.
Well, you ought to hook up with like Wyoming Disabled Hunters or Disabled Outdoorsmen USA Utah or somebody close by and go on a hunt with them where you have, people out there to help. And then you can kind of see what they do. I mean, once
Yeah.
once you do it some on your own, I mean, with other people, then you're like, okay, I can do this on my own.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I made that note as we were talking to like, yeah, there's a ton of. I wish Oregon had some, and maybe they exist.
There needs to be one, Matt. Why don't you start it?
but exactly what Chad's saying is like linking up with some of these disabled hunting organizations that like, yes, that handle a lot of the infrastructure that
Mhm.
is the barrier, which are great. I would also say so like I can only kind of speak to like the waterfowl hunting in Oregon, but like so ODFW, the state agency, and then US Fish and Wildlife, the federal agency, like they actually have quite a few accessible hunting options out there. It takes a little bit of work to figure it, like, I mean, it's taken me, a few years to figure all of them out and get my plan together, but they have a lot of accessible hunting options out there,
Yeah.
which I'm down to work with you to figure it out. But that's another thing. Speaking more towards the big game, like I'm less knowledgeable on that piece of it.
That's cool.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So link up, try to find an organization and link up with them. Somebody who's folks who are experienced and already know not just the different aspects of hunting, but helping folks in wheelchairs.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think Colton touched on this a piece. So he touched on, so I think each state's a little bit different. Kind of how hunting and fishing works in the US is the federal agencies have a set of rules and laws that apply, and then the state agencies have to follow those, but they can add their own regulations on top of that.
Sure.
So each state agency has, at least that I know of, has different disability hunting options. So like in Oregon, there's certain units. So most states are broken up into units, which are like smaller little pockets of land. And within those, some states allow, so in Oregon, there's some units that are buck only areas where you can take a doe. So if you have a disabled hunter's permit, you can take a doe or a cow elk within an area that for able-bodied folks is only a buck or a bull. So that's also something to look into. So I kind of pick units that are like that. Since I am I like meat in the freezer type deal. So that's also something to look at. And each state is a little bit different. So you always have to follow those, but that's the other option when you're sort of trying to figure out where to go is like, well, I want to be successful. I'm not concerned about, maybe a big rack on the wall. Like that's also a thing.
Very good. Thank you for the
Matt,
information.
Does
I
Oh.
obviously, like I just said, I don't have a whole lot of disabled hunting experience, but one of the things that I do use as far as technology goes for like outdoor exploration, and this could totally be, I totally intend to use this for when I do actually get out onto a hunt, but for the purposes of like land survey, because man, like we could be on our mountain bikes on some unknown trails, and like maybe we find ourselves in a spot where it might even be like dangerous or impossible to make a U-turn and that kind of stuff. So I bought a drone, and so I could like fly it up into the air and send it forward and actually do like a little bit of land survey to see if I'm heading in the right direction, if there's danger ahead, maybe even scout for animals. I don't know. But that's something that I have used mountain biking quite a lot.
Yeah, so I would say on that subject, like preseason scouting, that might work. You have to check with state agencies on legality. Like
Mhm.
if you're carrying a rifle with a license and you're hunting and using a drone, I think most states that's illegal. So you could wind up in some hot water with that.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and most states are like they're pushing back against technology like drones and like even trail cameras. There's a lot of states that are starting to restrict access to that. So just a little heads up on that.
Of course.
So I know in Oregon, I've kind of looked into it a little bit. The whole drone thing or stuff like that. From the research I've done, from the people I've talked to, you can scout with the drone, even for animals, but you have to wait 24 hours before pursuing those animals. So, if you're out and you drone up some deer or some elk or whatever, basically you have to mark it on your map and then wait 24 hours before you can go in and pursue those animals.
Oh, so if
And
you did want to use a drone for surveying, there has to be a buffer. So you can go out one day, do some scouting for trails, come back the next day for a hunt. I see.
yeah, exactly. And then
I would say that's fair. Yeah, 100%.
and I've been dabbling in the drone thing. I tend to lose them because I don't update my homing position. So I've had a few where I've been out in the woods and I push the home button thinking it's going to come to me, and then it comes back to my last known waypoint, and it just ends up disappearing because it takes off. But
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole drone thing is definitely do your research. But like I said, from everybody I've talked to, the buffer is 24 hours before pursuing animals after using a drone.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
And then another thing I like to use, especially doing a lot of e-scouting, is onX maps. They're super detailed. They've got 9 times out of 10, they've got all the latest trail updates on them. So you can actually read the terrain from the map. And they're pretty updated too on saying if you're interested in a trail or something. They're pretty updated too on telling you if the trail is open or if there's trees down or if it's blocked in some way too. So
that's great.
Yeah, I'll second that. I spend probably way too much time like just scrolling through onX and finding hunting spots. And then sort of along those lines of finding hunting spots on onX, like depending on what you're hunting, like private public becomes a big thing. So as a waterfowl hunter, like that private public boundary becomes a big thing. Like, and as somebody with a disability, like, so if you find a piece of private land that you're like, ooh, that looks really good for hunting, I want to try to get permission on that. Like, don't be afraid to knock on a door or call a number up and ask, because I mean, 9 times out of 10, like, especially if you knock on a door, a farmer comes out and they're like, oh, you're asking for permission and you're in a wheelchair, like they're going to give you permission. So I wouldn't be too hesitant on that. Like if you can find private access is always, I know for me, preferable over public, because a lot of farmers are like, oh yeah, you can drive into the field, get out, set up your decoys and stuff, and then somebody else can drive your truck and back out, stuff like that. So that's also kind of another thing to keep in mind. Yeah.
Well, and the other cool thing about onX too is they break it down between public and private.
Yeah.
If you use the hunt, because onX has, I think, 3 or 4 different variations of their map. But if you download the onX Hunt and then you pay, I think it's $30 a year for the premium, it actually, if you find a piece of land that you want to hunt or interested in hunting and you click on it on the outline of it, 9 times out of 10, it'll give you an address or a phone number to the landowner or to the company that owns the land. So sometimes you can go about getting permission that way too.
Matt, with the ODFW portion of it, maybe that's something you could take back to them is, you know, for somebody that's wanting to get back out there, like Jimmy was talking about, like what would they recommend? Or would they ever be willing to do like a, I don't know if you want to call it a guided hunt, but you know, provide support for somebody that wants to get out there and get back into it.
Yeah, so like, yeah, kind of along that topic. So like ODFW, the way their workshops work is they do a day of education. So it's usually like an in-person, like it's part classroom, it's part. So if we're gonna talk duck hunting, you know, day one is a little bit of in-class stuff. So talking about duck hunting, all the different things that come with that. There's a skills piece to it of like, let's go out to the trap range, let's do some shooting and figure that out. And then day two is actually going out and hunting. So there, you know, a couple, you know, 1 or 2 participants is matched up with a mentor, and then they go out and they actually go duck hunting. So that's kind of like, you know, that's what we're talking about in terms of figuring out what people are interested in is, you know, what that kind of looks like. You know, I worked with them a little bit in the spring for turkey hunting. Like, you know, we did the whole turkey workshop, and then, you know, they took participants out and did like a turkey hunt. I wish Oregon was a little bit better, like compared to like, I wish we had the deer population that they do in the South, where you could do an actual hunt for deer or something like that. But I think in the Northwest here, we're looking towards like deer or waterfowl or turkey or upland, so something like that. But I'm very much interested in hearing what people are interested in.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, even if it's just like building a skill, like the shooting skills or the woodsmanship or something like that, that doesn't actually involve a hunting day. That's also something that ODFW is very much interested in, because they do that stuff too. They do shooting days, whether that's long range, like rifle long range, archery, or shotgun. So they're also interested, if people are interested in just building that skill that doesn't involve hunting at that time.
And what about, let's go like somebody newly injured that's like, you know, still hasn't figured out about getting back out there and stuff. And like, what about a day of like learning how to carry your rifle on your chair and like and get around and like, you know, navigate, having somebody there to support you navigating terrain and carrying your rifle, like learning, helping build that skill to independently do that.
Yeah, so you're talking kind of like maybe like a mentorship type deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yes, like a yes, like a mentorship or buddy system, to like somebody to go out there and maybe provide tips and tricks and assistance if needed and stuff. So somebody could go out without the experience of like learning how to carry the rifle on their chair and all that, and have somebody there to provide support, but then also with the goal of becoming independent and learning how to build that skill yourself.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So it's kind of outside the sort of group workshop sort of thing, but maybe like having the ability to link people up with a mentor that's interested in helping somebody out.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be a group workshop as long as it was a group of people that were all needing that skill.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of did something like that in the spring with although I'm experienced at it, like I went out with ODFW, I got matched up with a mentor, and we went out and did like a turkey hunt. So the mentor I was linked up with, helped manage all the logistics of it and stuff like that, and setting up decoys and that sort of thing. So you're just thinking something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I guess my next question would be like to Colt and Chad in terms of like what do you, I mean, like what are your recommendations, or what do you think about the steps for people that maybe either they've never hunted before, or they hunted in the past, but like, they haven't hunted post injury. Like, what are your thoughts on getting started back into hunting and fishing?
Oh, every disability is going to be a little different.
Yeah,
So
it's I know
you
it's such a spectrum, but
you would want to have just some various kinds of adaptive equipment available for people to try, because it doesn't have to work exactly right, but if it gets close, then they can see the light. Like, okay, yeah, this I may have to custom make this for me, but I can see how it can be done. You just want to turn that light on, like,
Mhm.
and even if it's just them coming out and seeing somebody else doing it, they're like, okay, if he can do it, I'll be able to do it. Maybe not today, but if they can do it, I can do it. But I would just have a few different types of adaptive equipment out there, like a gun rest, a trigger puller, chest strap, just basic stuff that everybody could try. And maybe a zero gravity rig. I mean, that's more sophisticated for shotgun shooting, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you could have one out there for people to try.
Matt, that kind of reminds me of their ODFW's fishing trailer, how they added some adaptive equipment to that. And maybe they'd be willing to, get some pieces like Chad's recommending that could be available for people to come out and try and see what does work for them.
Yeah, so along that line, it's like, yeah, that was U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So
Oh,
yeah, so I worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to put on a fishing event here, and I think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. ODFW did a stocking of trout for us, and then U.S. Fish and Wildlife in our area has a whole fishing trailer, so which is stocked with gear and poles and all that sort of stuff. And so I told them, like, hey, if you want to be putting on fishing events, like for a lot of different user groups, you need to have some adaptive fishing gear. So they went out and I gave them a list, and they bought a bunch of adaptive fishing gear. But that was kind of a trial event for looking ahead. We did it down at St. Louis Bonds, which is just south of Portland, which has some adaptive fishing platforms that access the water quite well. We taught people how to rig up a pole and how to fish. And then because ODFW stocked it for us, we were quite successful, which gave people the motivation, which I think kind of Chad talked about, which was like just show them a little bit and create that spark. And so that created the spark for quite a few people in terms of like, oh crap, I can do this for myself. Like, this wasn't all that challenging. So just, if I just invest a little bit of time, I can go do this on my own. So I think that's kind of a roundabout way to say it. Like I kind of agree with, Chad's comment of creating that spark of figuring out how to do it. Because I think we all have the knowledge and we've all been doing it long enough that you show a little bit of that light, you're like, ooh, I can start adapting this to myself.
and maybe that's where like an adaptive workshop comes in, where it's an adaptive workshop with some gear there to kind of get that spark going.
Yeah.
Get some OTs out there
Right.
to help out. If you got a rehab anywhere in Oregon, they love that kind of stuff.
Colton, do you have any thoughts on that?
On the OT or
No, on kind of what Matt was saying prior to that.
no, not right offhand, because like I said, I'm pretty new at this still, so I haven't really done a whole bunch of digging into the workshops and stuff like that. The biggest thing for me was finding a mentor, that, got me out there, said, hey, let's try this. So we tried it, but it didn't work. But, then, that spark, well, I made it this far. What's it going to take to get to that next step? And then, you create that that product or that, adaptive, whatever to help you get to that next step. So I think a mentor, somebody who loves the outdoors, just as much as you do, or, something like that. I think that's a big part of getting into it or getting back into it, after your injury.
Matt, that brings up like, God, wonder if we can figure out like a mentor system. Like Oregon has so many passionate outdoorsmen and hunters out there. And I mean, I just can't imagine that there would be a list of people that would like be willing to, help be a mentor and help get people back out and that. And like, I don't know. I just see like a world of possibilities with that.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking the same thing of, some sort of almost like registry type deal of like, is there somebody that is looking for a mentor to be able to like contact ODFW, be like, here's what I'm trying to do, like connect me, some sort of connection type
Mhm.
deal. I think would be sort of very worthwhile.
Yeah.
Do you guys think we can do that in a small group, like get 4 guys together, 4 wheelchairs together, that kind of thing? I mean, would that be too many people to get out there?
No, I mean, it kind of depends on what the game is you're chasing, but kind of, I was even thinking about like, if you also then connect with an organization like, David's Share here in Oregon, and you get some track chairs out and you do a pheasant hunt. Like that's something where you can do it sort of group wise. I think, I'm not super versed in big game, but when you're talking about bear or deer or elk, that's kind of that's a very small, one-on-one type deal. That's not a big group of people as far as I'm aware. But then you start to, if you're talking about, pheasant or upland or, your waterfowl and stuff like that, you can
like turkey hunts, right? I mean, there's a
Yeah.
real contingency of turkey hunters, right? And that I kind of know that would love to take us out. I think they'd love to go out with us, and then we can basically shoot from a vehicle, right? I mean, that's what thing that they can do, and
Yeah.
then they can. Problem I see is retrieving them, right? I mean, without somebody as the turkeys, the turkeys start to get away, it's retrieving them. I don't know if your dogs are good enough to retrieve them all, but I mean,
well, dogs and turkeys, you go into a legality.
Yeah,
So,
no turkey dogs.
Yeah.
they're all duck dogs, right? Yeah.
So in the fall you can use dogs for turkey hunting. Up here, we'll use them for breaking up flocks, and you could use them for retrieving if you want to. In the spring, if you use a dog for turkey hunting, it is very illegal. So my girlfriend's dog would definitely retrieve a turkey. He's retrieved nutrias before we've shot. So, but yeah, then it becomes just a legality issue.
Those nutrias can be as big as a turkey.
Yeah, it wasn't his first choice to retrieve, but yeah.
Anyway, I think something like that, where we get like 4 wheelchairs out there, and 4 or 5, whatever real hunter, able-bodied hunters. I think that would be the way to do it, something like that. And it seems like they would enjoy that kind of thing, being able to.
Yeah, I mean that sort of one-on-one is what ODFW already does for like able-bodied hunters. That's what they do for their turkey hunts. That's what they do for the upland hunts. That's what they do for the waterfowl hunts, is doing that sort of a little bit of education plus a matching with a mentor and going out and actually doing a hunt. So which, I think would perfectly transfer into sort of the adaptive area. And we do have a lot of, especially up in sort of the Northwest area, we have a lot of wildlife management areas that would, lend themselves to doing something like that. So like, I know like the WMA that I hunt here on Sauvie Island, like we have 4 or 5 adaptive blinds, which are, accessible to most folks. with a disability. So, I can see something like that being like you put 1 or 2 people with disabilities in those blinds with a mentor, like that's totally doable.
Yeah, it's especially if there's some adaptive equipment available. So a
Yeah.
little bit of trial and error, little bit of guidance, because like Chad was saying, like even every quad is like slightly different of what works for them. So that's why having a little variety of stuff to try to see what you can, make do with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat a little bit. I think there was,
Oh, nice.
yeah, I think Kelsey Box said they're interested in sort of big game, maybe some grouse or some quail, and interested in a workshop, which I'll take that feedback. And then also, I think Anthony Romero said, finding fishing spots and then worry about popping tires and stuff. So I like on that. Let me see if I can find it real fast. Like ODFW does a great job with making an actual map of fishing spots. Yeah, they call it their disabled anglers access map, which I'm going to put in the chat for folks that are interested in that.
Matt, also send that via email later and I'll get it
Yeah.
out to everybody.
Yep, I can do that now. Yeah, what are other thoughts or questions people have about trying to get into the hunting or fishing space?
I know, like a lot of the comments of the fishing space was the access to get to the fishing spot was so difficult at this last one. If we had a smaller or closer area, or even if we did, something as close in as we could to get people there, that might be very helpful, and we could get a lot more attendance there, that kind of thing, as well as just having the rules. That and I think a lot of people don't know the rules that you can fish off a dock or that kind of thing too. I think that would be very helpful for a lot of people because some people have no idea what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we were what we did for our adaptive fishing days. Like, we were able to give, we picked a spot that was pretty accessible, and we were able to get people, actually on the water, very close, and then be able to provide a little bit of education on how to, and then also what's legal, what and stuff like that.
Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
I think we overloaded them with info.
I know, right? Well, I just want to thank Matt and Chad and Colton for coming and sharing your experiences and your knowledge, and hopefully creating some of that spark for people to get out there and kind of figure out what works for them and get back out there.
Chad, have you hunted Oregon yet?
No, I haven't been to Oregon yet.
Well,
I'll have to come up and we'll go duck hunt.
Mm-hmm. Have you yeah, we have the if you want to chase those little squeaky geese, those cacklers, let me know.
Yeah, heck yeah, we'll do both.
Yeah, you guys will have to come over east, and go squeak hunting or sage rat hunting, man. That's some of the best fun shooting time you'll ever have.
I was just thinking about that because I invited another guy Jake that does a lot of that, and he was talking me up about it, a little while ago about that sage rat hunting. And
Yeah,
it sounded like a good time.
Oh, it's a great time, especially so I do a lot of coyote hunting too, over east, and there's a couple guys over there that own, gosh, I don't know, they must own, if I were to take a wild guess, it'd be 150,000 acres, spread out all throughout the valley over there. And they actually run a business, and they have a trailer, like a flatbed trailer, and they'll just take you around and park you in their fields all over the property, and you just sit there and shoot sage rats and squeaks as long as you want to sit there and shoot. And it's a good time, and I think that would be an easy, in for somebody to figure out, if they want to pursue the outdoors, or it'd definitely be an easy way for them to get back into it. There's just because the access is pretty available, to do something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Where, Chad, where are you located in Texas?
I'm southwest of Houston. I'm down close to the coast.
Okay. Did you say you do crane hunting?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
that's on my list for 2024. To head down to Texas and do some crane hunting.
Oh yeah. Well, the Panhandle is the best place.
Okay.
So we could meet in the Panhandle.
Oh, I'll be hitting you up. Yeah.
Be a lot shorter drive for you.
Well, if there's no other questions, comments, or thoughts, I just want to thank everybody for coming and attending tonight. And any feedback would be great and welcomed. And as far as future topics for these educational forums too, like we're always open for hearing what the community wants, and we'd welcome that feedback. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording. Or at least try to.
Maybe not.
Wait, I think I can.